All right, it's Thursday, June 27th. This is an end of the day SPY recap. And today on the daily chart, we end up with a two up, slightly green day that still hasn't quite broken out of the range that we've identified, 4-day range, now a 5-day range, but it is very close to the top of that range. Today, in a sense, we were stuck between the high of the range and the midpoint of the prior day, or the midpoint of the range, and price just kind of got stuck there. It didn't want to break out to the upside, and yet it didn't want to fail. And as you could imagine, when you're inside of a range and then intraday price action is having a hard time going either up or down, that's going to lead to some, not great directional opportunities and some volatility. And you kind of know that context. In terms of the weekly chart, we're running out of time now, to get that 2 down week after that shooter bar, and it kind of looks like we're going to hold green, stay above the open onto Friday, and you never know for sure. Anything could happen tomorrow on the final day of the week, but we've had time to kind of get that 2 down bar. It's not developing, so that's sort of a factor in terms of how your bias might go going into tomorrow. Also, on the monthly chart, this is the last day of the month tomorrow, and it looks like this monthly chart is going to close green, which means you're still, whether or not you continue straight up green, green, green month after month, you're at least expecting that high to be tested going into next month. And then you determine if it does get tested early, does it fail and come back to the midpoint, or do we start a little down and then eventually come up and test those highs? But a green month, towards the end of the month, usually means you're going to at least test higher into next month. So again, the bias, it's always been up, but now as we're coming to the end of the week and the end of the month, it's sort of, keeps your expectations higher going, in the short run as well. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. I guess tomorrow is kind of a key day. It's sort of an actionable signal in the sense that this is a 3 bar, this red bar. We took out the low of that bar. We came out the high of that bar. So if we come down and take out the lows of that, then we could say we're failing and coming back down through the bottom of the range. But it looks like, we're creeping up here trying to break out of that range, and that's kind of what you're expecting. So, you could aggressively, kind of like today, it started up, there was an opportunity to try for the breakout. You kind of know either it's going to happen or it's not, so you have to be nimble about it. But, the more times we keep trying or knocking on the door, the more times it's likely to break through. But again, we'll let price action lead the way. In terms of today, the pre-market range between the blue lines, you can see the choppiness all day long on the 15-minute chart. And the first bar kind of went up strong, and it looked like you can get that breakout right out of the gates. And then immediately we came down and took out the low, and then started with a big reversal. And I shot a video how I bought calls here, just anticipating that this was just a liquidity grab. You were trying to break out to the upside. It did hit the high of the day, and I didn't scale out. I was trying to. I missed it, and then it kind of came down strong. So I kind of discussed, once we're coming back through the midpoint of that first bar, how I bought puts here, thinking we might get a failure at the top of the range, and we hit the lows of the day, and I scaled out at this point and set up a no-risk trade. And then I wanted to see if getting through the lows of the day, would we really fail and come through the midpoint of yesterday, which we didn't do. Once we came up, I had to kind of take a small gain on that put trade and say I don't really know what's developing here when we're right in the middle of the first bar, and again stuck between the high of the range and the midpoint of yesterday. And then price kind of just sat there for a little while, and then it had a big red bar to the downside. I discussed again how I bought puts, and we're going to see if this one maybe would take out the low of the day and start below the midpoint of yesterday and go to the bottom of this range and everything else. It came down there. In this case, I did scale out and set up kind of a no-risk trade. And then, again, you had to break even at worst. Or if you didn't scale out, you had to break even once it failed, again, with this green bar. And then it closed a little bit more to the upside. So we end up with kind of a 2 up green day that looks like it wants to break out of this range, but that's still the context in play here. Are we going to do that or not? And, if we do, it could be a strong move to end the week, and we can end up with a very strong, green weekly bar, which would lead into the monthly bar, also wanting to test a little higher, at least to start the month. So that's what's unfolding, as the week comes to an end with 1 day to go. We'll watch the actionable signal is to the downside, a 2 down. If we get that, you can't predict it. And then, if we start up, I wouldn't have a problem, buying and being pretty aggressive because we're breaking out of a 4-day range and a 5-day range, and we can get some strong moves, towards the top of, that weekly high 2 weeks ago. So let's see what develops here tomorrow. Again, it's been tricky inside of this range, but with good, entry areas relative to what the intraday structure is showing you, you're not getting hurt too bad as we wait for some kind of resolution, either up or down.